Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video. So today we are going to be talking about some books that I want to read this summer. And what better time than right now, where we are currently going through a heat wave where I live, than to talk about some books that I want to read this summer. So I sat down and I kind of started putting some books together, and I'm a huge mood reader, so I wanted to just set like a few. I think I have like 4. No, just kidding. I have 5. So I set 5, and who knows if I'll get to them. I love to make these videos, but I also love to not actually follow the TBR that I set for myself. So yeah, it's just fun to sit and think about some books. Even if I don't read them, it's fine. I wanted to make this kind of like a summer TBR, but also some books that I personally would recommend for the summer. So first half will be my summer TBR. Second half will be some books that I personally think could work really well for the summer if you're looking for books to read. So without further ado, let's just dive right into these books. So up first for one of the books that I'm hoping to read this summer is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This is going to be my second James Baldwin that I read. The very first book that I ever read was The Fire Next Time, and this is just nonfiction essays, so it's not like one of his fictional stories. So this was really, really good. But I am just so curious to read one of his like nonfiction books and see how he tells a story. And I always see people talking about this one, so I feel like this would be the best one for me to read next out of like all of his other books. I recently watched Bibliosophie's Books for the Summer video, and she talked about this one. So I feel like that was like the final push for me to just pick this one up, set it for my summer TBR, and I don't know too much about what it's about. This is just like from what I've gathered from watching other people's videos and like what I remember, but it's about 2 men. They fall in love, and I think it takes place mostly in Paris, if I'm not mistaken. I could definitely be mistaken, and I think that there might be some sort of an affair that happens. So that's about all I know. And like I've said in other TBR videos, I don't like to know much about books, so I like to just dive in and see where it goes. And I feel like for most of the books on my TBR, I'm just gonna give like a quick, this is what I think it's about. Hopefully I'm not wrong. But yeah, I'm adding Giovanni's Room. Super excited. I feel like I'm going to love this one. Okay, so up next, I don't actually have the physical copy of it because I got an e-arc through NetGalley. So big shout out to NetGalley and the publisher for letting me have a copy. And it's Private Rites by Julia Armfield. If you watched my favorites video from not this past year, but from 2022, that feels so long ago, even though it was only 2 years ago. But if you watch my favorites video, I talked about Our Wives Under the Sea. I absolutely love that book. It's one of my favorite books. So when I saw it on NetGalley, I put my little request in and I crossed my fingers. I was not thinking that I would actually get it, but I did, and I'm so excited. I haven't read Julia Armfield's short story collection just because I don't find myself always gravitating towards short story collections, so I feel like I just like have put it off. I would love to at some point read her short story collection though. I am so excited that she has a new book coming out, and if you're in the UK, it's already out. You can get your hands on it. And for those of us in the US, this is going to be published on December 3rd. So a little bit of time, but I am just so excited that I got my hands on a copy. So I want to read it as soon as possible, which is why I'm putting it on my summer TBR. I don't actually know that it'll be like summery vibes, but it's just a book that I really want to prioritize and get to soon. I have 2 books that I'm currently reading, and I want to start it as soon as I'm done those 2 books. As for what it's about, or what I think it's about 2 sisters and their father, and I don't really know if like the father's sick or if something's happening with the father. Also, I could be totally wrong. Like I said, I don't fully know the synopsis. I just saw Julia Armfield and requested it. Whatever she writes, I want to read. So yeah, no idea, but super, super excited about it. I've already seen some reviews coming out, and for the most part, I feel like people are enjoying it. I don't know. I might be biased because I just loved Our Wives Under the Sea, and I really hope that it's not a letdown. So we'll see, fingers crossed. Okay, so up next is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, and I am so excited to finally be diving into the Neapolitan Quartet. I have been telling myself for a very long time that I want to start this, and I just haven't. I've also been like slowly collecting the books every time I see a used book out in the wild. So I have the first 3. I just need the 4th one. I haven't allowed myself to buy the 4th one because I was like, you haven't even started the first one. Like, start this one and then you can get the final one. So now that I've started it, I'm going to keep my eye out for the 4th one because I read the very first couple of pages and it's so good already. I don't know why I was intimidated to start. Maybe it's like the length of it. Also, my like bookmark just keeps doing this. I hope it's not too loud. Let me put it inside the book. I started it and it's already so good. I think it's going to be really funny, really juicy, and I'm just curious to read more. But a lovely human messaged me on Instagram and she was like, do you want to buddy read this? And I was like, I do actually. Like, I have been meaning to read this summer, and this was like the final push that I needed to actually read it. So I'm so excited to read it with her. And we started a little like storygraph buddy read, which is one of my favorite ways to buddy read. So I'm just excited to have someone to chat with and talk about it as I go through. And I'm finally getting to it. I'm so excited. Oh, I didn't even say what it's about. So what I know about the quartet, just from what I've heard so many people talk about, it's about 2 girls, Lena and Lila, I believe, and they are best friends. We just kind of follow them through their life. I think this one is going to focus a lot more on their childhood and how they even met, how they became friends, and then the rest of the quartet continues. So I'm finally going to start tackling this one. I kind of want to read maybe like the second one this summer too. I want to try and squeeze it in because I feel like this is like the perfect time to read these. We will see. But goal number 1 is to get through this one. Okay, up next is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. And I initially wanted to bring this with me to Colombia. And no, I didn't. That's a lie. I wanted to bring Love in the Time of Cholera. I don't know why I said this one. I didn't want to bring this one to Colombia because I feel like it was going to be a beast to tackle. But I want to try and give it a go this summer, and maybe it's going to be one that I get through slowly. There's something about this that's making me feel like it would be a good summer read. I don't know if it's like the magical realism elements that are making me want to read it this summer, but I don't know, something about the green cover too. I just feel like this is the time to read it, and I haven't read any books by Gao, so I want to change that, and I figured I'll probably start here. I don't know if that's a mistake. I don't know if I should start with Love in the Time of Cholera instead, but this one is calling my name, so I feel like I'm just going to answer, and I'm going to try to get through this one, and hopefully it goes okay. As for what it's about, I think we're following a family, like the different perspectives of members within this family, I believe. I don't actually know if we get different perspectives and different point of views, but that would be cool. I'm so intimidated by this book, and I don't know. I think it's just like the magical realism elements, and I feel like there's a lot of family members. So, okay, there's not a ton. There's like a little map. Not a map. What is this called? A family tree. So there's like a little family tree, and I don't know, I think maybe that's why it intimidates me. I feel like I might get lost trying to follow along and remember who's who, but I'm gonna try and tackle it, so we will see how this goes. And if not, maybe I'll just switch to Love in the Time of Cholera, because I think maybe that one might be easier to tackle. I don't know, we'll see, but I really want to try this one. And then up next is a book that I feel like I've talked about quite a bit, so I'm not gonna dive too much into it, but it's The Houseguest by Amparo dávila. I got it for Christmas, and it's a book that I really, really want to read, but I just kept putting off, and I put it in my spring TBR, but I didn't get to it. And then also Kat ended up requesting it from her library. So we're like, okay, let's do a buddy read. And I think she's like inching slowly towards the top of the line at her library. So I think soon she'll be getting her hands on it. But it's a collection of short stories and they're horror. And I feel like it's really gonna freak me out. I don't really know why I'm so like fascinated with reading this book, because I feel like it's gonna be like real life kind of horrors, like scary shit that could happen to you out in the world. And that's the kind of stuff that like messes with me so badly. So I don't know why I want to read this so bad, but I do. So yeah, I think summer is the perfect time to read scarier books, probably because it's like sunnier out and lighter for longer. So I don't feel as scared reading it at night, but we will see how this goes. I'm excited to have a friend to read it with, because I think that we can just kind of talk about how scary it is together. I'm such a weenie, and this kind of stuff messes me up. So we will see how that goes. I might be very much so unwell after reading that. These are all the books that I'm hoping to read this summer, plus this one. Can't forget Private Rites. I feel like these are good picks. I'm excited about these, and I'm so excited that I've already started one. I'm doing good. Now we can dive into some books that I have read and that I have really loved and that I do think would work so well for the summer. Hopefully you haven't read some of these. You might have. Some of them are pretty popular, so these are just some books that I recommend personally, and I've done this before, but I get so intimidated making book recommendations. I mainly just like to share like the books that I've read, and I'll share what it's about, and if you think it sounds good, then you can pick it up. But for me to be like, these are books I think you should read, that feels really intimidating. So this is me practicing recommending some books. Up first is The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante, and this is the second Ferrante in this video, but this book I've seen on a few people's lists, and I totally agree with this recommendation. I feel like it's such a good book to read in the summer. I could also see someone reading this in the fall, maybe not the winter, and I don't think the spring. I feel like this would be either like a summer or fall read. Basically, we are following this woman, I don't remember her name, but her husband suddenly leaves her and they get a divorce after like 15 years of being together, and she is left to figure things out. They have 2 kids and a dog that are now in her care fully. She's just having to navigate and cope with the loss of her husband leaving her and leaving her so suddenly. And there's also this like obsession with keeping tabs on her husband, or I guess her ex-husband, and seeing like what he's doing and who he's with. So we follow her as she's like navigating all of that, and it is so stressful at times. It's on the shorter side, so it's not super long, but I had to put this book down so many times because it was so stressful, and there's one chapter specifically that was like really, really tough to get through. So I do recommend checking the content warnings just to make sure this is a book that you'd want to read. But yeah, her writing is excellent. It felt like, so I don't even know, so claustrophobic and like intense, and I feel like this would just be such a perfect summer read. It's not light and fluffy, that is for sure. It's not like a summer book in that sense. I just feel like summer's hot and sticky, and I don't know, I just think that this would go really, really well. So I highly recommend this one if you like Elena Ferrante, or if you're looking for something to kind of be your first read of her. I think that this is a really good one. Granted, it was my first one and the only one that I've fully read so far, so I don't really know. I guess I shouldn't say it's a good one to start with because I haven't made my way through her other ones, but I am really glad that I started with this one. I feel like I didn't know what to expect from her writing, and this just kind of like blew me away. I think she's such a talented writer, and she made me feel a lot of things. I just really loved the way she wrote about like losing someone, losing yourself after having lost someone, and just kind of like losing control and trying to get your life back on track. So I really love this one. If you haven't read it, I do recommend, but like I said, just make sure to check the content warnings on this one. All right, another book that I think would be so good for the summer is Fever Dream by Samanta Schweblin. I think that this is just like a perfect like sit down, read it in like a day or like a day or two. I feel like you can just like fly by this because it is like pretty spaced out, and it's just like a tiny book. Like comparing it to this one, It's short. You could definitely fly through this. And in this story, we are following a woman, totally forgot her name, but she is in the hospital. She wakes up and there's a little boy by her bedside, and it's not her son, and he's helping her so that she can remember what happened and what led to her being in the hospital. It's very eerie. Even just like the thought of like a little kid, like if I woke up in a hospital bed and there's just like a child next to me, like that's freaky. I don't know, that something about that like really is so eerie and creepy to me. So like that scene just alone is like, what's going on? What happened? Why are you in the hospital? Why is there this boy next to you? Why do you not remember? It's eerie. It's so good. But also there's no chapters in this book, so it just feels like so fast paced and like you don't want to stop reading it. I flew through this, and I'm a pretty slow reader. I don't think that I'm like the fastest reader. I read this in one sitting, if I'm remembering correctly, and I feel like it's best to do it that way. I feel like it really adds to the whole fever dream element if you just read it all in one sitting. I feel like this would be such a good one. I feel like I've talked about this book so many times, so I don't think that it's shocking that I've added it to this TBR, but I do just think it's a perfect summer read. Or fall. I feel like are fall and summer books just like interchangeable in my brain? They might be. I don't know, because I think this could also work in fall. Water break. I've been drinking out of glass cups now. This is like a total side note, not related to anything, but I don't know, drinking out of my water bottle, all I can think about is like, what if there's mold in here? Like the little, I don't know what it's called, the like silicone band that like is in water bottles. So I've switched over to just a classic glass cup, and it feels cleaner in my brain. I don't know why. I've been debating if I want to get like one of those Nalgene water bottles. I don't know if it has like the silicone rubber thing in it to like, I don't know what it's called. So if you have one of those and you love it or maybe hate it, just let me know, because yeah, I've had the Owala. I have one of those and I love it, but now I'm just like getting so in my head about it. I don't know. I'm like, maybe I need like a wide mouth Nalgene so I can like really clean it. I might be overthinking it, but I'm switching over to glass. So up next, we're switching gears a little bit and we're going to the romance genre. I don't have the physical copy because I got it from my library when I read it, and it's You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke emezi. I feel like I just nailed that name. I could never say that one, and I think I just nailed it. I read this one, I don't remember when. I don't even remember if I read it during the summer, but I just like flew through this book. I also didn't really know what it's about. I just knew a lot of people were like talking about it and had like feelings about it and like reactions and were shocked and talked about how messy it was. And it was really messy, and it was so good. I feel like this is such a perfect summer read, and it's lighter, but there are some themes of grief as well, so I liked that that was also part of this book a little bit, and we talked about that. But yeah, it gets messy, it gets juicy, and I don't really want to talk too much about what it's about, but I'll say like a little bit. So we're following our main narrator, and she's dealing with some grief. She lost someone in her life. She's also getting back into dating. So we see her meet someone, and then they go to like their vacation home on some island, and some things happen there. And that's about all I'll say. I'll just leave it there, and then you can kind of just go on the ride. I don't know, something about Emezi's writing and their books just really get you to think about certain things and kind of, I don't know, think about like, ooh, how do I feel about this? Is this okay? Am I all right with this? Do I like this? Do I not like this? And I don't know, I just think it's really fun. I feel like it's just perfect for this time of year, and yeah, I don't know, I really love that one. So now we're switching back to like a horror, eerie kind of book from romance, and it's Our Wives Under the Sea. I love this book, so I'm not shocked that I'm including this. I think I read it in the fall, and this is another book that I feel like could work really well for summer or fall. Either of those seasons, I think that you could read this one. I wanted to include it in summer because ocean. That's what made sense to me. But this is about a married couple, Leah and Miri, and Leah goes on a deep sea expedition. Something goes wrong, something happens, and when she comes back, she's not exactly the same. Like something is different about her, something's off, and Miri is trying to kind of like figure out what happened and also be there for her wife. We also learn how they met and see a bit of their love story. I am like terrified of the ocean, so for some reason when I'm terrified of something, I kind of love to read about it. Reading about this was like just thinking about like being in a submarine. That is so freaky to me. So it definitely got me feeling a certain way, just that concept alone. But this was just like so much more than what I was expecting when I went into it. Like I knew I might love it, but I just loved it so much. It does have more of like a vague ending, so if you're not a big fan of that, I don't know that this will work super well for you, but it worked so well for me. I love the end scene so much. Like I still remember, and I don't have a great memory, so most of the time when I read books, I'm like, wait, what happened at the end? I don't really remember, but this one I do remember, and I love it so much. So I just think that this would be a perfect time to read it. Like I said, summer or fall, I highly recommend. But if you're looking for a summer read and you want something a little bit eerie, but also something that kind of touches on grief and love, this could be the one for you. So yeah, loved this one. Had to add it to the list. I'm laughing at this next one because I just want people to read it. I haven't come across too many people that have like actually read it, I don't think. I don't know. But up next is Fight Night by Miriam Toews. I love this book so much. It's probably one of my top books ever, and I think it could really work well for summer. So in this book, we are following Schweblin, and she has been temporarily kicked out of school. Her grandma basically gives her an assignment that is to like write a letter to her father, who's not in the picture, and in Schweblin fashion, she of course also gives her grandma an assignment, which is to write a letter to Gord, which is Schweblin's unborn sibling. So yeah, we follow Schweblin, her grandma, and Schweblin's mom, and it's like these 3 generations of women, and I just love all 3 of them. I loved the dynamic between Schweblin and her grandma. It was so sweet and tender and funny, and also I loved Schweblin's mom and seeing like the complicatedness between her and Schweblin. I would stop and like read bits and pieces of this to Jacob, and I read so many to him that he like ended up picking it up, and he also really loved it. So we like whenever we like look at this book, we're both like, we love this book so much. It's so good. So I just wanted to add this to the list because I want more people to read it. If you pick this up this summer, please let me know. If you hated it, just don't tell me, because I don't think I need to know that information. But if you loved it, I want to know, because this is just like one of my favorite books of all time. We have one more book to get through. This, I feel like, is the most obvious book that I could have picked just because of the title alone, but it is Dogs of Summer by Andrea Abreu, and look at this book. Look at this cover. Summer is in it. It is just like the perfect summer read. I read it in August, like 2 years ago, I think, and it was just like a perfect read. It felt sticky, it felt hot, it matched what was going on in the book, and it was so good. So Dogs of Summer is about our main narrator, and she is 10 years old, and she lives in the Canary Islands, and she has this best friend named Azora, and Azora's very bossy. She tells them what they're going to be doing. She kind of like takes the lead, and our main narrator just kind of like follows along and just hangs out with her. She like looks up to her, and it's just messy and gross. Like they do some really disgusting things, and that's just what like girlhood feels like. When you're growing up, you get into like some gross things and you do some nasty things, but I thought that what Andrea did in this one was so good and so different from any other book that I've read. There's like one chapter where the 2 girls are getting onto like AIM and they're having conversations with strangers, and I'm like, that brings me back to when I was a kid. What a time that was to be online as a young child in like the 2000s. Yeah, this also takes place during the summer, so it's very fitting for a summer book to read because you kind of just like see what they get up to. It's hot, it's sticky, and I just think that this is like such a perfect read. If you're looking for a book that covers like girlhood and the grossness of being a girl and growing up and jealousy and friendships and the complications of friendships, like I think that this one would be such a good one for you. And it is on the shorter side, so it's only 180 pages long and it's a very short book. I have two very short books, like literally short. Look, they're tiny. But this is the final recommendation. How many did I have? Six recommendations. These are the 6 books that I recommend you read this summer. And I hope that there's something new on this list that maybe you hadn't heard of, or maybe there's one that's been on your list and you haven't read yet, or maybe there's one on this list that you've been meaning to read, and hopefully this is the push you need to get to it. It was so fun to put this list together. I will say, I feel like putting a list together for summer and fall is so much easier for me to think about. But like when I think about like books for spring, I don't know. Spring is like that one season that I'm like, what do you read in the springtime? Like what do you base it off of? I don't know. Let me know if you liked the little recommendations, because maybe I'll do that again for the fall and maybe some of the other ones going forward. I love making lists. I love sharing books that I've already read that I really love. And I also just love putting together a list of books that I want to read, even if I don't get to them. So this was a lot of fun. One of my favorite videos to film, so I hope you enjoyed. And I would love to know if there's any books on this list that you are going to read this summer, or what are some books that you're hoping to prioritize this summer. Please let me know. I want to know what you're reading, because it's fun to share what we're all hoping to read. That's all I have for today. I hope that you are doing well, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.